I know that every Sunday morning when you walk into church, you carry stuff with you. You have all that stuff that you've been thinking about and doing during the week. And I'm sure, no matter how together you may or may not be, I'm sure you have periods of time when you're just plain tired and crabby. And you're just not fun to be around. And I think we all know people that when they get crabby, they are not happy unless you're crabby with them. And so they share their crabbiness with you. But then there's also those times when we're kind of at our best. Maybe a day when, at the end of the day, you look back and you say, I was pretty positive today. I was pretty affirming. I was able to make a difference. Probably in the middle of those two extremes is where we live most of the time. I wonder if you're very good at handling conflict. Each one of us has gifts. And as I get older, my list of gifts gets shorter and shorter. One thing I've never been good at is tension and handling conflict. I want everybody to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and get along. And then when something doesn't go right or somebody is mad about something, then I just kind of want to walk the other way. And then I read in the gospel for today where Jesus says, "Blessed are you when people exclude you and revile you, and when they do, just jump for joy, for your reward is great in heaven." Well, that's not what I do. I just run the other way. Anyway, I remember I had a pretty good fight with a really good friend of mine. And he said some things that were not very attractive. And I thought to myself after it was over, I said, "What, am I really that bad?" And instead of running the other way, the only time I ever did, I called him on the phone. And I said, "Wait a minute, Bob, we got to talk." And he said, "Well, sometime we will." And I said, No, we're going to talk right now. And I said, "Where are you right now?" He said, "I'm just about ready to sit down for dinner." And I said, "Put it in the oven, heat it back up later, because I'm coming over." And 15 minutes later, I was sitting at his kitchen table, and I said, "Put that bottle of brandy right here, and we're going to talk." And we talked. And somehow, some way, in the heat of the moment, we were able to make it a little bit okay. But other than that, I just am not very good at doing that. I think a lot like you about what's going on in the world. Every one of us today is saddened by what happened in Aurora. The innocent families, when in a moment of unexplained violence, your entire life, family is turned around. And even yesterday, I had a funeral over at Colonial Chapel. And talk about a house divided. Part of the family was over here, and part of the family was over here. And I walked in the door, and you know what it is? I didn't know the people. I could feel the tension. I walked in the door and I said, "Something ain't right in this room." And I was about ready to walk into the room and begin the service. And Ed Damster looks at me and says, "Well, Don, good luck with this one." And I said, "Well, thanks a lot for the call." And he said, "Hey, if I ever have goofs that I don't understand and don't believe in God, I can call you." And I said, "Well, thanks a lot for this one." Somehow, some way, we got through it. But it was tough. And I don't like to see that kind of stuff keeping people apart. Whenever I think of some of the stuff that you're going through, and some of the stuff that's negative in the world, it makes me even more determined than ever to keep that love bucket spirit alive. It reaffirms your desire and my desire to let people know that in spite of all the stuff that goes wrong, the power of kindness and goodness and decency and forgiveness, those are the most powerful forces in the world. Whenever I doubt the power of that, from now on, I'm going to pull out a letter that I got from a young man whose mom recently died. If you have not met her, you've heard about her. And her name is Frankie. And she came here years ago as everything was normal and most everything was good. And then about 20 years ago, she started her long and tough battle with a very rare form of cancer. And finally, she went to rest and was at peace just a few weeks ago. And she's like a lot of us, whose kids don't go to church, except for people like Mitch. He goes to church. And if you ever got the secret to how to get your adult children to go to church, would you please let me know how that is? Because I can't even do it as a minister. Well, anyway, just the other day, I got a letter from her son, Rick, who didn't go to church. And I would like to read just a part of that letter to you. The whole letter is on the far table. And here is what he said. He said, Pastor Don, we've been slowly but surely going through my mom's things. I don't think I ever realized the extent of the support she got from her church until now. You know, we're all hoarders in some sense of the word. Some of us may hoard things like baseball cards or junk mail in boxes on the kitchen counter. My kids, their drug of choice are stuffed animals. My mom, though, was different. She hoarded love from All Saints Church. Don, there must have been 3,000 cards in her house from you and the congregation. She kept every last one of them. I found them in drawers, in books, and a whole bunch of them on the fridge. Holiday cards, Sunday school cards, the occasional thinking of you card. I've seen them all. And don't get me started on her extensive collection of All Saints t-shirts. Over the last 20 years or so, All Saints has been nothing but a literal godsend to her. And for that, I want to thank the congregation for their love and support during my mom's short journey on this earth. Like a lot of us, the kids would come to church maybe for a wedding or when they wanted me to baptize their kids, but they didn't really understand Frankie's attachment and dependence on the church, which is you. And when his mom died, he began going through her stuff. To me, stuff is a biblical word. And this is the words that he sent me. I guess we're all hoarders in some way. And I'm sure that my stuff is different than your stuff. But Ricky goes through his mom's stuff and finally understands her love for the church and what you gave to her. You see, here in this place, despite all of our imperfections and the imperfections of her minister, Frankie found validation. She found purpose. She found somehow, some way, what God's plan was for her. And even her own kids didn't get it until they went through her stuff. And so without saying a word, and in her death, she became our teacher and our rabbi. You know something? Each one of us needs validation. Validation that our journey, as short or as long or as imperfect as it is, that our journey does make a difference. It may be that 12-step program that you go to every week or every day. It may be all those bumps in the road that you felt along the way. Maybe you're just one of those ordinary folks who goes about your daily life, you take care of yourself and your family, and you wonder if anybody ever notices or cares along the way. But you see, love is patient, and love is kind. Love hopes all things and believes all things. And when you love somebody from the guts of your being, you bring that person validation. And when somebody loves you from the very guts of their being, they give validation to each one of us. There's a young man out there who knew his mom was a hoarder. And what he discovered was that she hoarded stuff that only a human heart could contain. I only hope now that I have finally learned my lesson. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.